Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 67. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, we now live in a world where Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin are both SEC head coaches in the state of Mississippi at that. I mean, it's a great time to be alive, right? when that happens. I'm a huge Mike Leach fan, and also, I mean, I don't know how you can't be a fan of Lane Kiffin and his offensive mind. You know, with the air raid offense and that Kiffin and all runs. I think it's an exciting time. Boy, if you're a blogger for either one of those schools, man, you just hit those. It's got to feel like the lotto right now. So I think that's obviously kind of the big news, of course, with the coupled in with the head coaching changes around the NFL, and of course the divisional round of the playoffs getting started this weekend and all. But boy, I mean, great time to be alive.
It is. Well, let's talk about the head coaches changes in the NFL briefly here to kind of kick things off. Everyone has their opening filled except for Cleveland. They seem kind of close to getting Josh McDaniels inked with the Browns. So you have McCarthy in Dallas, Joe Judge, which was a shock of a hire with the Giants. What is your reaction? What moves? What hires did you like? What hires are you kind of questionable on?
Yeah, look, I mean, Mike, I tell you this, I'm glad Cleveland didn't get McCarthy or Ron Rivera. How about that? Okay. I'll start there. And now it looks like they're down to just a handful of candidates. I think Bieniemy will probably get an interview there in Cleveland. I think Josh McDaniels obviously will as well too. I think Rivera and McCarthy were the cream of the crop guys to get there, and obviously they're in Washington and Dallas. Did you hear McCarthy talk about analytics and all, and Pro Football Focus and all like that during his press conference the other day?
Yeah, it's like you're talking about Brave New World. Who would expect a coach to talk about that kind of stuff, so openly? But it's 2020. Right,
and I tend to get a little bit aggravated that it doesn't seem as from the outside that the Steelers embrace the analytics as much, and I don't think it would hurt to try to do that,
Right.
Every edge that you think you can get, and I think McCarthy talked about a lot, situationally how they look at a lot of those things too, and I really think that means a lot, win probability, play probability, down distance, all that stuff comes together, man, and if you can increase your chances to have a successful play just a little bit, just off of sheer numbers and tendencies, you got to do it, in my opinion.
It's interesting. The Steelers lost Kareem Kasem, their kind of top analytics guy last year, who took a job at Duolingo. He's actually back in sports, but not in Pittsburgh. Or David O found this article. Kasem's back, got hired by, I should say, with the Minnesota Twins. So he's not doing baseball stuff where analytics obviously runs king there. So Steelers still have an analytics department, and it's one guy, Jay Whitmire. But I think losing Kasem was a big hit and already makes a team that doesn't embrace analytics too well, already kind of going more and more conventional and getting away from the numbers game. So you're right. That is a concern, I think, for this organization.
Right. As far as the other head coaches go with, Rule and for these other guys, it's obviously going to be a wait and see. Boy, that who's the Panthers owner? Tepper.
David Tepper.
He likes to try to think that he can model this thing like the Steelers, and thinks the new guy that they had there could potentially be a Chuck Noll type. Well, that's mighty tough hand kind of outside or initial analysis there, or what, if you will, when you go that far there. But look, Chuck Noll is kind of an unknown, right? When he took over receiver in Pittsburgh, and obviously Bill Cowher was relatively unknown, and as was Mike Tomlin as well too. So sometimes maybe not being that known guy, it really doesn't mean anything. Once we get in there and see, once they get in there and start putting things together, that's when the rubber meets the road and all. But on the surface, I think McCarthy in Dallas is the best choice.
Yeah, I think about, obviously Tepper wants to do the Chuck Noll thing because that's, of course, wants to be anyone's goal, but I wonder if it's going to go the other way. Do you know who the head coach was before Chuck Noll, right before Noll was hired in 69 in Pittsburgh?
Are we talking about Walt?
The Steelers head coach, basically, in 68.
Parker?
No, Bill Austin. And the reason why I bring that up,
Bill Austin. Okay.
Because Bill Austin was hired by the Steelers because he was Lombardi's assistant. Everyone thought, okay, we're going to get the next Vince Lombardi. And Austin tried to be that guy with the big passionate speeches and, this, whole thing. And he just couldn't be Vince Lombardi because no one else was Vince Lombardi. And so I understand what Tepper's trying to get done here with Matt Rule. I think it's a good hire. I saw the press conference, energetic guy. I'm not knocking the hire, but I wonder if it's going to be more Bill Austin than it is going to be Chuck Noll in Carolina.
Well, yeah, we'll see. For sure.
And then with Joe Judge, I never would knocked it, and I have no idea if this guy's going to be a good coach, and I knew nothing about Joe Judge. But I like the idea of hiring a special teams coordinator because that's a guy that has to work with the entire team, not just one position, not just one side of the football.
Well, look at Harbaugh. Harbaugh's a testament that can work.
I thought the press conference was pretty cheesy and just very cliche filled. But what else are you going to say? It's what everyone wants to hear. But I don't knock the resume for Joe Judge because I think that's actually really, really important, has a lot of value to it.
Yeah, but I tell you, people think that they get a piece of bark off the Patriots tree. Right. That's all it takes. Well, overall, that has that really, I guess, Bill O'Brien, if you consider that, but
I think Flores in Miami did well his first year.
Yeah.
But then you have Matt Patricia in Detroit, and he's been poor.
Right, and obviously McDaniels the first time around that he had wasn't great and all. So just because you come from that tree doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna be the next Bill Belichick, if you will.
Right, exactly. Again, goes back to the whole, Lombardi, Bill Austin thing, and I think you kind of see that with Patricia, for example, and how it relates to Bill Belichick. All right, Dave, bring it back to Pittsburgh here. They made a couple of offseason signings since we've last talked, signing 2 players to reserve future contracts. Wide receiver Anthony Johnson, who we talked about on Wednesday's show as part of the big crop of guys working out for Pittsburgh. The receiver out of Buffalo, UDFA from a year or two ago, will sign to the offseason roster. And then John Battle, the safety from LSU, Steelers at their pro day. Whenever Battle worked out, I forget, last year, 2 years ago. So a couple guys that will get carried through the offseason.
Yeah, look, how nice was that? We talked about Johnson on the show the other day, and just a few hours. You know what I love best about this time of year? Generally, when it comes to these futures guys, Alex, is you turn around, and you look back on SteelersDepot.com, and there's a draft profile on a guy, and that's been the case already with a couple of these guys. Obviously in Darren Hall. And Johnson, and really John Battle too. So props to the guys. It's just a testament of kind of how deep and how thorough the site and you guys and really all of us try to be year round. And the fact that we can just pull up these kind of scouting reports that one of us on the site has done is just it's fantastic. And you go back and you quickly look. I mean, it's impossible to remember all these prospects, every little detail about them, and all. But you'll be able to pull these things up and go, oh yeah, I remember that now. And it really, looking at both Battle and Johnson. It quickly came back to mind. I think really a lot of what we talked about Johnson the other day, not the fastest fleet of foot guy. I think he's faster than what he timed, at least on tape. A contested catch guy, and we all know how important that is to the Steelers. And a guy that's got a nice average yard per catch and average there. Why he. I think a lot of people were a little bit surprised that he didn't get drafted, but he was able to stick on the practice squad most of his rookie season there, so that speaks to something. Now, will he stick on the 53? Will him or Battle stick on the 53? It's way off. It's way too too far out to make those kind of predictions. But at least they are guys on the bottom end of that depth chart now that should push a little bit.
Yeah, you never know. I thought Johnson was the biggest name that caught my attention of that, 7 or 8 players that were listed for the tryout on, I think, Tuesday it was. We talked about on Wednesday's show. So there's some talent there. Then Battle is a downhill guy, a box type. I mean, his athleticism is poor. At the combine in 2019, he ran a 4.67, 29.5-inch vert. Those obviously are really poor times. But if he can be a physical guy at a position like safety where there's really little depth for the Steelers right now, maybe there's something there.
Look, he played a little bit of center field too,
Mm-hmm.
at LSU. So he's kind of they moved him around a little bit. A few of it. He had 5 interceptions there at LSU. I've compiled all of them. Overthrows and some tip balls, but they still count as interceptions.
Right.
He did have the nice kind of diving, cut under interception in one of those games. I forget exactly. I think it was Mississippi State, one of those anyway. But a couple of forced fumbles there. We did a good job of form tackling there and jarring that football loose as well too. And this was a guy. Battle was a combine guy, I think, as well, if I remember correctly. And look, I mean, we talked about the lack of depth at the safety position there, and how possibly that they're going to address that position in the draft at some point. Once again, they need some guys on the bottom end of that depth chart to help push upwards, and I think he's a good person to be in that position.
He is, and I think of the two, I have more optimism for Johnson in terms of competing for a roster spot. It's funny, the Steelers, they like their backs big, like their receivers big too. They got a ton of these 6-foot-plus guys on the offseason roster. I mean, the guys they've already had, and then you had Jamal Custis, who was a late practice squad addition, signed to a futures deal, and Darbo, yeah, and then you had Anthony Johnson. It is a big wide receiver room in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely, and you're probably going to grow a little bit more for it's all said and done here.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dave. Anything else from Johnson or Battle? We don't need to go too in depth on those guys. Who do you like more of those two? Do you think Johnson or Battle has I know it's really tough to say, but who do you think has a better chance as we sit here today?
Yeah, just go back through some of Johnson's tape and all. Obviously, kind of looking more forward, I think, to him overall. I haven't gone deep down the rabbit hole with Battle yet, but he comes out of a top-notch program, obviously. And once again, he's another guy that's stuck on a practice squad. So it's that next tier, if you will. He didn't stick on the 53, but I think it says a lot when a player is able to stick on a practice squad for 12 or more games throughout the season. And both these guys in Johnson and Battle were able to do that. And I think that speaks to what degree, I don't know, but I think it speaks to something that they were kept around in that capacity.
I do too. All right, Dave. Before I move on to the some other Steelers news, I do want to mention, because I want to tease this right now. We'll be talking to Charlie Batch here in a little bit. Dave, you did a great job to be able to arrange an interview with Charlie Batch, who I think everybody knows you call him Mr. Pittsburgh, which I think is a very apt and appropriate nickname for him. And he's got a ton of great insight on Ben, on Mason, on Duck, just the offense and the quarterback room as a whole, and also if he wants to be a quarterback coach someday. So we talk about that with Charlie Batch a little bit later in the show. All right, Dave,
he is Mr. Pittsburgh, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I mean, everyone loves Charlie Batch, and he's done a great job for the community. And, I know he didn't start his career with the Steelers, but I think everyone remembers Charlie Batch as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I have that touchdown. I have that touchdown.
Oh, I know that you do. If it's out there, if it's a play that existed, you got it. Where did you get that?
I got a large library, man. I'll put that up on the Twitter machine on this Friday. That'd be a great Friday flashback, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right, I'll put that on. I'll put that on the site on the Twitter machine later today.
All right, good deal. So we'll talk to Charlie here in a couple of minutes. But before we do that, I do want to talk about some other Steelers news. David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey have pulled out of the 2020 Pro Bowl with injuries. We know Pouncey suffered that knee injury in the Week 16 loss to the Jets. DeCastro apparently had a minor thing. So just a note there, they obviously will not be playing in the Pro Bowl. I'm not sure who the replacements are, but just want to pass that along. And still wish I knew exactly what's going on with Pouncey long term. You hope it's not anything that's going to drift into the offseason, but no surprise that Pouncey's pulling out.
Yeah, Ryan Kelly and Joel Bitonio are the two that are going to replace place them on the AFC Pro Bowl squad. Look, if I had my way, none of them would play in it.
In the sense of because they'd be in the Super Bowl, or just to avoid the risk of injury?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Was that the same? Juju in that Pro Bowl last year. What knee was that he banged up? Was that the left one?
That's a good question. I don't remember what knee it was, but I remember him getting dinged.
I was thinking about that the other day when thinking
the
about
tinfoil hat was coming on.
Oh yeah, it's not hard. I keep it real close by. I have 3 versions of it. Some of them hats fit a little bit tighter than others there. But back to Marquise Pouncey. Look, the fact that he was not placed on IR, Alex, I can't. That alone to me signified that whatever his injury was, he would probably likely be able to return from it however long if the Steelers would have lasted in the playoffs there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he needed surgery and needed to be shut down, they would have shut him down.
Sure, like Mason. Yeah.
Right. They would just shut him down. They didn't do that, so that's where my optimism comes in there. I don't know what Nick or whatever David DeCastro is dealing with. Really, I don't care. I'm glad he's not playing in it. And look, it's not his first time. I was hoping maybe Cameron Hayward and Watt would find a way out of it as well too. But look, we all see what the Pro Bowl has become anyway. More of a going through the motions thing. I don't know. It's heated back up a little bit. I think the last couple of years. And my big wish now is that Hayward and Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick get in the game and get out of the game as quickly as possible.
I thought DeCastro would have won a play in the Pro Bowl to actually feels like, to realize what it's like to play an NFL offense, because he didn't get to play in one this year. But I know I'm cutting deep on that one. But I think DeCastro just been there enough where he's like, I don't want to go. I've been there enough. I know what it's like. I just want to rest, which is fair. And again, no injury risk, which would be nice. But yeah, so you have Hayward, Watt, and Minkah will be in the Pro Bowl, or at least they haven't announced otherwise so far. So that'll be fun to see those guys.
DeCastro got a new baby too, doesn't he? Didn't his wife have another baby at the start of the year there, forced him to miss like OTAs or whatnot? So that probably means probably can't do any. Rather be around the house probably
right.
At this point.
Sure.
Or he's told he better want to be around the house. That's probably how that works out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dave, some other news here. NFL Hall of Fame, we talked about the voting. Obviously, that stuff's going to be announced here in the next couple of weeks prior to the Super Bowl. But also with the Centennial class, with all the veterans and guys from years and decades ago. I haven't followed that process quite as closely as I think you have. So can you kind of explain what's going on with Donnie Shell and the Centennial class and his Hall of Fame outlook?
Yeah, and it kind of, I guess I got to do a better job of reading the fine print, Alex. I didn't think they were going to decide this until the same time that they decide the other 5 modern selections for the class of 2020. But they're obviously doing it a little bit different with this Centennial Slate blue ribbon panel and all like that. I thought it was the regular voters that was doing this. It's not, and that's why I say I got to do a better job of reading the fine print here. I do like that they have the Centennial Slate blue ribbon panel, and there's a lot of great names on that panel as well too. Bill Belichick's on that panel. Did you know that?
I did not.
He is one of these several that are deciding which of these 10 of these 20 players are along with the what they do 3 head coaches and 2 contributors or vice versa. I forget how it's going to work there, but obviously it's going to be 10 of the senior players in there. Dick LeBeau is on this Centennial Slate blue ribbon panel, as is Gil Brandt. So I like that they're doing that, and evidently they met a couple of days ago, I think in Canton, and they've made their decisions on which 10 of the 20 players will be going in. And I can't help it, and I know you probably have the list of names in front of you as well too. We'll go over them one last time here. Cliff Branch, Harold Carmichael, Jim Covert, Roger Craig, Bobby Dillon, Laverne Dilweg, Ox Emerson, Randy Gradishaw, Cliff Harris, Winston Hill, Cecil Isbell, Alex Karras, Vern Llewellyn, Tommy Nobis, Drew Pearson, Donnie Shell, Duke Slater, Max Speedle, Ed Sprinkle, and Al Wistert. Now, a lot of these guys played before I was even born. Okay, now, but probably a good half of them played, throughout my lifetime. Cliff Branch, obviously, Harold Carmichael, Roger Craig, Randy Gradishaw, Cliff Harris, Winston Hill, I think. Obviously, Donnie Shell, Drew Pearson, Alex Karras, just off the top of my head. Now, when you look at this list of 20 names, Alex, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of tape. All we have is stats on a lot of these guys to go back and look at here. But you would have to think that Donnie Shell has a great chance of being one of the 10 chosen off this group of 20, right?
I would think so. I think the fact that LeBeau's on this panel is certainly going to help Shell in at least some, maybe even just small way, but still help nonetheless. I came up with 8 names of my list of who I would induct over those 20, and it was Branch, Carmichael, Craig, Isbell, Karras, Pearson, Shell, and Duke Slater. So I think, you add 2 more. I really like Shell's odds here.
I do as well, and Harold Carmichael, great receiver. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if he, obviously Branch, I think does.
Roger Craig.
Roger Craig. Yeah, Alex Karras was just a hell of a damn defensive player.
The only reason why he's not in now is because he got banned for a year for gambling, him and Paul Hornung, and that's what kind of sullied Karras' name.
Right. Now, obviously not being able to speak objectively about quite a few of these guys, it makes it tough here. But man, when you look at Donnie Shell, and I point out time and time again how just go break his stats up into post dynasty Steelers and pre-dynasty. He was all they had for a while there on defense, quite honestly. Now obviously Blunt carried over obviously into the 80s and all like that. But as far as the one who was making plays on later on into the career there, it was him. For sure. And I don't think, I think a lot of the bias against Donnie Shell up until this point has been that, he's just another member of that, of those 70s Steelers that he's just going to get in because he's a 4-time Super Bowl champion. That really shouldn't be the case with him. I've been trying to collect as many of his interceptions as I can over the course of really the last couple of weeks. I'm glad I got them out on Twitter. I don't know what good that did for him, but man, I might have to take that next podcast off if he's not. And we're gonna find out what next Wednesday, right?
Is that the date? Yeah, I didn't see the exact date.
I think it's like on Good Morning Football, one of those shows. We should learn then who 10 of these 20 or who the 10 seniors are that are going to be in the Centennial class, and I'm going to be hugely disappointed if Donnie Shell's not one of those 10 outs, because I really think it's going to be tough, moving forward for Shell to have as good a chance as he's had this year to get in.
I wholeheartedly agree, Dave. Who on that list of 20 do you think are like the slam dunks? You say that guy's got to be on that list. I know Shell's one of them. Who would join him?
Cliff Branch.
Yeah.
Maybe Drew Pearson too. Boy, you love to hate Drew Pearson as a young Steelers fan, but
right.
The older you get, I mean, the more you recognize that there was a reason why you hated him, because he was good, and he played in those Super Bowls, obviously against the Steelers throughout those years. And I wasn't a big, obviously for selfish reasons, when Roger Craig, I didn't want San Francisco winning all those Super Bowls, but Roger Craig was a do-it-all back, man, and going to be hard to keep him out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I have all those guys on my list. Isbell was someone, him and Don Hudson. I mean, they just tore up the late 30s and 40s. And Duke Slater, I don't know if he exactly broke the color barrier, but certainly was one of the first African Americans to play in football and played for a long time. People forget that. There was a time where basically, what's the phrase here? black players basically weren't allowed from playing football from like 1934 to 1946. But prior to that, there were several that played, including a Steeler, Ray Kemp. So I think there's an important piece of history there. And Slater, by all accounts, obviously I didn't watch him, but by all accounts was a really talented player.
I just don't have the time to go back and try to read and, try to research a lot of these guys like I should. Look, some of these guys are going to, that make this 10 are probably going to be guys that we're not overly familiar with, you know. But that doesn't mean they're any less deserving because they played before, my mom was changing my diaper, kind of thing there. But I do think from just an objective standpoint, when you do look at this overall list and look at what Donnie Shell and knowing what Donnie Shell did during his career, I can't see how they would leave him off this list of 10. But we'll see.
I can't. Yeah, we'll find out. You say next Wednesday?
Yeah, I think next Wednesday, Alex.
All right, so we'll let you know. We'll have a podcast, or maybe not, based on what Shell.
I'm going to be depressed, man.
I like his odds. Truly, sincerely, I really like his odds to get in.
All right, let's hope so.
All right, Dave. I want to talk about tight ends here in a little bit, but let's break here. Let's talk to Charlie Batch. You're getting a ton of good information on the Steelers quarterback situation, the offense as a whole. So we'll break, talk to Charlie Batch, and come back.
Okay, welcome back. It is Friday. It's the Terrible Podcast, and we have a special guest for you today. He's been on before. You'll know him. You'll know him by name. He's Mr. Pittsburgh in my book. Really, every time I look at and see him or hear him talk, I always think Mr. Pittsburgh. He played 15 seasons in the NFL as a quarterback. Was a former second-round draft pick of the Detroit Lions in 1998. Played 15 seasons in the NFL. I think 11 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am, of course, talking about Charlie Batch. You can follow Charlie Batch on Twitter at Charlie Batch 16. Charlie, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you. I appreciate you having me on.
Charlie, let's first start with a lot of the work that you do. Because you are really considered Mr. Pittsburgh in my eye, it's because not only the time that you spent in Pittsburgh, but the stuff that you do off the field as well too. And I think you got with the Best of the Batch Foundation and everything that you have going on off the field there, I think you have an expansion coming up as well too. And I'd like you to first start off by telling the listeners a little bit about that, what all you have going on.
Yes, with our organization that we have, it's called Best of the Batch Foundation. We are an educational foundation, and we actually serve 3,800 kids annually, and we focus mainly on reading and computer literacy programs along with our STEAM programs. So it's just exciting to be able to do that, and with this expansion project that we are adding 26,000 square feet to our existing foundation building. So now this will help increase our numbers from 3,800 kids to over 4,000 kids annually. So we're excited about this, and we're talking about a lot of different things with this particular building. So we're excited. The kids are excited about it, and we will be opening up toward the end of 2020. So the end of this year. So we're excited about that. And anybody who wants to follow that actually can go to batchfoundation.org, and it'll give you all of the details as far as what's going on with our building.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic work that you do, Charlie, once again, and I know everybody appreciates it as well. Look, I was going over your stats real quick. Again, I had to refresh my mind. You threw one touchdown against the Steelers during your career. Do you remember when that happened and who that touchdown went to?
That actually was my rookie year. We were playing Thanksgiving against the Steelers up in Detroit, and that was my first ever Thanksgiving game. And of course, there were a lot of Steeler fans, specifically my family, who actually came up to that game at the Silverdome. And I remember running an out and up, and I threw that touchdown pass to Herman Moore. And the guy who was guarding him was Carnell Lake.
Sure
so I remember it like it was yesterday, trust me. And that was that infamous coin flip game with Jerome in the middle of it, calling heads, tails. And I remind everybody, and I just crazy because I just saw Jerome a couple weeks ago in the barbershop, and I said, Jerome, it's been 21 years, man. Can you please be honest and tell everybody what you said? Because we heard heads, tails, and he's still kind of laughing. But I like to remind all of the young guys that was part of history, because that was the last time that you actually can call a coin flip in the air, was that game in 1998.
It looked like cover 3 on that. Looked like kind of a skinny post 21 yards out to Herman Moore. And I'm sure you've never reminded Carnell Lake about that, right?
Trust me, if I'd have played him a lot more times, he'd have made me look a lot worse than that. So I don't rub it in at all.
All right, let's get right to it. What a roller coaster ride the Pittsburgh Steelers had in 2020. Obviously, starting with Ben Roethlisberger going down with the elbow injury 6 quarters into the season. Mason Rudolph comes off the bench and really right out of the chute, man. Mason, I thought really handled himself well there with a couple of touchdown passes against the Seahawks. Obviously, as the season progressed, everybody knows what all has transpired from there. We went into the several games with Devlin Hodges as the quarterback, and then you get into that game against the Jets, and even though he went out with an injury again, Mason Rudolph really essentially ended on a positive there. I thought, obviously Devlin comes back in to relieve an injured Mason Rudolph, and then we all know how the season ended there. So kind of quickly, go over the seasons of both Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges and where you see both those guys at.
Yeah, I think, when you mention those games, when you're the backup, it's tough because, number one, you never know when you're going to get in the game. But when you do, you have to perform. And like you mentioned, Mason Rudolph was able to come off the bench in that Seahawks game, throw a couple touchdown passes. But whenever you have defensive coordinators in this league, when you're a backup, you can catch people off guard. But when you start to put now 3 to 4 games on tape, now these coordinators are able to game plan against you. So those were some of the things that now when you're a starter, you have to now make those in-game changes. And if you don't make them quick enough, guess what? You're going to continue to see some of those blitzes and whatnot throughout the course of a game. So when you started to see the season unfold the way that it was going, now you started to see his stats dip a little bit just because coordinators were able to pick up on tendencies. Then all of a sudden, Mason goes down with an injury. Guess what? Duck comes in, and now Hodges is playing, and all of a sudden he's doing the exact same thing that Mason Rudolph did by sneaking up on people, and then now coordinators are starting to get a feel for some of the tendencies, and then that's when Duck started to kind of dip down a little bit with his stats. And guess what? Mason jumps back in the Jets game, and he has a nice performance, and unfortunately he gets hurt, and the season ended the way that it did. I just don't know we've seen enough of both of those guys to figure out whether they can get it done. And I think both of them, took advantage of some opportunities throughout the course of the season, but I don't think they took enough to convince this coaching staff that they're ready to make that move if, for whatever reason, that Ben Roethlisberger is not able to perform in 2020, even though Mason got a sense of endorsement from Mike Tomlin there. But when you look at his comments, he was excited about what Mason was able to do, and that's why he named him the backup. But there also was a comment in there that said, I just didn't see enough of him, and I'm disappointed that he missed time. So I think there's a lot of questions that way on both guys.
Yeah, Charlie, and Alex and I, throughout this whole process, people want us to label them, to say this guy is this and this guy is that. And Alex and I really wouldn't do it because we don't feel there's enough tape on either one of these guys right now. Now, let me ask you about this other narrative going around that we're faced with, not only on the site, but on Twitter and obviously emails on this podcast. People say that Randy Fichtner did not do a good job about, styling, formatting the offense to fit either one of these young quarterbacks here. And my answer to that would be look, once you have your install in, from OTAs and training camp on, once you get into the season, it's hard to really just manipulate things around due to practice time and all like that. So with that, what would you say, how much time from the time you install the offense during the offseason there, and once you get into the regular season, how much manipulation can there actually be of the offense to help fit a different quarterback?
Yeah, and it's tough. And I know Randy Fichtner, there are a lot of criticism that way, and rightfully so, just because he is the offensive coordinator. But when you prepare the all offseason, you're preparing for who you think your starters are going to be. And this offense is geared towards Ben Roethlisberger. You're expecting a healthy James Conner, expecting a healthy Juju Smith-Schuster. And then all of those pieces are not there, and then you're left scrambling trying to figure out what you're going to do offensively. So that was the toughest part for Randy. You lose Ben 6 quarters into the season. And now if you knew Mason was going to be your starter in the offseason, then maybe things look a little differently. But here's the one thing that I just want to calm a lot of people down, or caution people to understand that, listen, I understand Mason's in here. He is in his second year, but essentially he's a first-year starter because last year he was not even the backup. Right. He was running the scout team reps. So when you go all year running scout team reps because Joshua Dobbs was your backup last year, now you're starting over in the offseason. So he actually competed against Dobbs. He beat him out. That led to Dobbs being traded. But now here he is thinking that he's going to learn on a run, and here he is 6 quarters into the season, he's a starter now. So Randy doesn't even know the type of quarterback that Mason is in the regular season because the preseason is scripted for success. But as the year went on, you started to see a little bit of some of his strength. He could throw the football down the field, but guess what? You lose James Conner. Then you lose Juju Smith-Schuster. You don't know what you have with James Washington. He gets benched. Deontay Johnson is a starter. So there are a lot of moving pieces at this point, and it's very tough for a coordinator to put a game plan together when, number one, you don't know what your quarterback's capable of doing, and you don't have all the pieces that you need skill-wise on the outside.
I agree wholeheartedly, Charlie, and I think that's important perspective when it comes to evaluating Randy Fichtner. I will say the thing that was most disheartening to me over the final 3 weeks, Buffalo, the Jets game, and Baltimore, was the offense's inability to pick up some of these overload defensive back blitzes, inside linebacker combination looks. How much is that on the quarterback for not recognizing, not having the freedom or ability to adjust protection, or how much would you put that on coaches for just not creating enough answers for this offense to respond to?
Well, I think when you look back, coaches have done a nice job of and preparing those guys, because when you're working throughout the course of the season, you know if you don't pick up blitzes in one game, you're going to see it again the next game, and you have to prove that you can beat it. So you can prepare, and this is one of the things that Mason loves to do. He loves to change the protection because he wants to hit the big play down the field to make the defense pay for him. It's okay to throw a hot every now and then to prove that, number one, I saw the blitz. You pick up a first down on a short, quick 5 yards. Guess what? You're not going to see that blitz again. So when you start preparing and start trying to now getting to the best possible play, now the pressure falls on your tight ends to pick up a blitz. Can your running backs pick up a blitz? And when you're rotating linebackers or rotating running backs, those guys aren't picking up blitzes. And guess what? Now it just creates a problem, and ultimately it falls on the quarterback because it looks like he is not the one being able to see the blitz and whatnot. So there are a lot of moving pieces that direction too that doesn't necessarily fall on the coaches.
How did you bounce back from bad games? Obviously, Mason and Duck, they're going to go through a whole offseason evaluation, but just week to week, I'm just curious, was there any change in your mentality from an especially rough game? How do you think those guys handle those things week to week?
Yeah, I think, when you're a young guy, it's one of those things to where, I was benched as a young guy having a bad game, but, I was able to start and kind of rebound and finish off, and prepare it. But, that tests your mentality to make sure that you're able to bounce back. It was different when I was younger, but when I was older, okay, fine, you just want another chance to compete because I'm the veteran. And if a lot of people remember the Baltimore game in 2012, and they're like, man, what a great game. You went on the road and won. But people fail to realize that I led a team to an 8-turnover performance the week before when we lost to the Browns. And I personally threw 3 interceptions that game. So people are quick to forget about what happened whenever you're able to rebound. And that was something that I was fortunate enough by Mike Tomlin to at least get the start in the Baltimore game the following week to prove that the following week the previous week was a fluke, that I could respond, and I was able to respond. And it's funny because now people talk about the Baltimore game more than they do the Cleveland game. But if we had lost the Baltimore game, guess what? That would have been the legacy that I would have left, because they would have been like, man, Charlie lost 2 bad games on the road.
Charlie, well, a lot of people will try to say the fact that neither one of these young quarterbacks had a true quote-unquote quarterback coach played a little bit, a role in why their seasons weren't as successful as many wanted them to be. But, Randy Fichtner is obviously ex-quarterback coach, and Matt Sims has been there, even though he doesn't have the role of quarterback coach. He's essentially been the quasi-quarterback coach, I assume. But with all that said, how much did these two, these younger quarterbacks need a quote-unquote true quarterback coach, and how much more would it have helped, if any?
Well, when you look at it, Matt Sims did a nice job, in my opinion, of getting these guys ready to play. But ultimately, Matt is not playing in the game. Randy Fichtner is not playing in the game. And when you're going X's and O's in the board, everybody scores well. Oh, I know what I'm doing this way. But when you're in the heat of the battle and you have 2.5 seconds to make a decision, that is tough. So those guys, coaches-wise, can't do that. So I just thought the way that Matt Sims prepared it and got these quarterbacks ready, we're going to remember what happened towards the end of the season because they didn't make the playoffs. But I thought at that point, Randy and Matt Sims did a nice job. Do I think they need a quarterback coach that they need to bring inside? I don't think that. I really don't, because I think they have everything internally. And Mike Tomlin is not a guy who makes quick rational decisions, knee-jerk reaction decisions by doing some of the things that we're asking from fans and media that we may think they need. I think internally, I don't think it changes made. I think they go with what they have.
Charlie, obviously you do the pregame, the preseason games and all like that, and your radio analysis, and some might say, well, Charlie's too close, on that side of the fence to give an objective analysis. But I see it the other way with you because I listen to you, throughout the season in various interviews and whatnot. People are now clamoring saying the Steelers need to draft another quarterback this year because we're unsure about Ben Roethlisberger, that kind of stuff. I say no. I say you got to roll with these guys right now. Maybe next year come back and talk to me about possibly drafting a quarterback. Where do you come in on the Steelers and their quarterback need this offseason?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to, can you get a definitive answer as far as Ben Roethlisberger's recovery? Will he be ready to throw in April? Will he be ready to throw in July? So whatever that looks like, I think this starts there. And if he's not ready to throw until July, now Mason Rudolph probably will be the guy leading the first-team offense up until training camp. But what does it look like underneath him? Do they keep Hodges? Do they keep Paxton Lynch? Do they keep J.T. Barrett that's on this roster? I don't know, and I think it's going to all fall based off where that conversation happens sometime in February. But go back on your point as it relates to people thinking that maybe I'm too close to home, maybe I don't want to give an opinion right or wrong. That's not necessarily the case. But when I'm at the game, I can watch the game visually versus what people are actually seeing on TV. So that allows me to go onto the post game 90% correct. On Monday, once I verify on film, that tells me what I saw what I saw in person was actually true or not. But when the game is on the road, it's hard because I'm watching the television copy. You don't know who's right, who's wrong, because you're only getting a certain view of the actual game. And again, on Monday, I have to go back and verify what I thought I saw. So it's easy to make a decision whenever you're watching the television copy. But if anybody who's listening and they want a different perspective, they should get the all 22 package, and they should go out there and watch the entire game to say whether it was the quarterback's fault, the offensive lineman's fault, running back, or the receiver not getting open. The all 22 will tell you everything. So if you're one of those fans, invest in the all 22 package.
Yeah, absolutely. We're called they accuse us of being fanboys as well too, Charlie. We try to be as we both have the all 22 and all like that, and try to be as objectionable. There's just some people that have that mindset that you just for the team kind of thing. Alex,
but here's what I like about you all though. You will go back and proving to people that you do watch the all 22. You will give people the video and the video portion of what they thought they saw, and you say, it didn't necessarily play out that way. And once you verify it with video, those type of opinions start to kind of, the whispers get a little softer because now you're proving with evidence.
We try to be narrative killers,
Absolutely. I get it.
Go ahead.
It's hard. I mean, think about it. Much as Zach Banner was playing well, there's a play in the Baltimore game where he's sitting back and he's running a crossing route. One receiver, and Zach Banner is your second receiver running out. Do you really think as a quarterback that you want to throw to Zach Banner, which is a phenomenal person, 6'7", 300+ pounds, running across the field on a drag route against a safety? Is that a matchup that you really want to take? No, it's not. So you have to create that video to show people, wait a minute, the quarterback this thing gets sacked because he didn't know where to go with the football. You have to look at his options too.
Yep.
Banner ran 4 routes this year, which was 4 too many for my liking. But Charlie, I know that you said that you don't really see the need for a quarterback coach, but I got to say, I think every Steeler fan I've seen on Twitter and Facebook have said that you should be the quarterback coach. I know you do an awesome job on the TV side. Do you have any desire to get back to get into a coaching role, and would you consider the idea of being a Steelers quarterback coach?
Yeah, not at this moment. I mean, never. You can never say never, but those type of things, I'm still around the building. I'm still actively around because, on the media side, you have to show up and watch practice, and I'm still involved in the video portion. So these type of things I love to do, but I also love the flexibility of doing other things, mainly my foundation. And if you're committing a lot of that time to the coach's space, guess what? There are a lot of kids that, I'm now taking my time away from that I know need my time just as important as what my job if I was coaching at that point. So it's a tough thing for me to do, but that's why it's important. That's why I tried to create the flexibility when I was done playing to be able to have access to do multiple things.
Right, understood. My last question for you, Charlie, and I'll let Dave close things out. Did you ever have a serious arm injury in college or in the NFL? I know in 2004 you had a knee surgery that put you on IR during Ben's rookie year, kind of opened the door for him to be the backup to Maddox, and then obviously ascended the starting role once Maddox went down. Have you suffered any of those kind of serious injuries? And if so, could you kind of just walk us through when you knew that you felt good again and how that can kind of relate to what Ben's going to be dealing with these next couple of months?
Yeah, two times happened. Once it was my fourth year. I separated my shoulder toward the end of the season, so it wasn't that much of a deal because I didn't need surgery. We knew it was going to heal right away. But the major one for me was in 2008. I actually broke my right collarbone, and I ended up hurting in the preseason, and I missed that or I was put on injured reserve, and that allowed Bauer Leftwich to be signed here in 2008. There was a lot of questions on whether or not I was going to come back because there wasn't a lot of information about a quarterback coming back from a broken collarbone, yet alone on his throwing shoulder. So it took that's why they wanted to do surgery. It took about 2.5 months for me to really just kind of lift it up and potentially start throwing, but I was throwing by the end of January, so it didn't cause anything seriousness as it relates to decisions being made. And I appreciate the organization giving me that opportunity to follow and prove that I'm healthy. I think, and then that actually allowed for when Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone, they actually used me as the case study to say, wait a minute, Charlie had a plate put into his collarbone. Now, Aaron, you could be able to do this without no ramifications by it. He's been able to now play with no more injury, but I was the case study that they used off of that. So now when you look at what's going on here, with the Steelers, something happened with Mason, but it was a non-throwing issue. So I think they'll probably be comfortable that way. With Ben Roethlisberger, we don't know what's going to happen because I don't know if there's ever a case study of a quarterback actually injuring some of the ligaments that they injured in his throwing elbow. So I think that's a little different than what I had, but I think you just have to be honest, and I know Ben Roethlisberger will be honest as it relates to where he is in the process and making sure that he doesn't do anything to harm his team.
Charlie, as I close you out here, I couldn't help, but I made sure I paid very close attention to the quarterback play in the wild card round of the playoffs. Obviously, eye-opening, or at least it should be to fans this past year, of the plays Roethlisberger makes, extending the plays. If they didn't know it, they know it by now. They should. Obviously, you get into the wild card round here. All these quarterbacks now being able to make plays, extend plays, the value of that. And then you see what Lamar Jackson's obviously doing with the Ravens and all. Is this where we're going now? I mean, is it going to be a prerequisite for these guys coming out into the NFL for not only to have the arm strength and the know-how ability to read defense, but also extend plays as well?
Yeah, and you have to. It's always been that way, But right now you have a lot of guys who are a lot more mobile playing this game at this particular portion. So I think when you look back just on every play, I mean, really probably 1 out of every 4 plays a quarterback has to ad lib on something. Maybe that's a missed assignment up front, maybe receiver or a guy just running free. So you have to make a play on the run. So that's what these quarterbacks are able to do it, but now they're able to do it with their feet, where in the past they were doing it with their arms. So it's always scary for a defense because if you commit an extra defender to a quarterback, guess what? That means it's one-on-one coverage on the backside. So these quarterbacks right now are making you pay, and I think the biggest example of that was Deshaun Watson whenever he made the biggest play at the end of the game. When you have 2 defenders, Buffalo defenders, coming at him, that should have been an easy sack. He bounces off of it. Luckily, 2 defenders were there that allowed the momentum and the force to be able to get him to react back on his feet. And he made a huge play, and I put Houston in scoring position. They ultimately won that game. So I'm just excited because we are in really good hands with these young quarterbacks in this league right now that we know that we're going to watch some exciting football for years to come.
I agree. Who's going to win it all, Charlie?
Unfortunately, I really do think Baltimore.
Yeah.
I just do. I don't see with that running game. I think with Lamar Jackson, as long as he stays healthy, I think they ultimately win it. And probably when we're watching Baltimore and Tennessee this weekend, I'm sure the networks are panicking a little bit just because that might be the fastest game in history with 2 running football teams. That clock may not stop, and there'll probably be a lot of time to fill when that game ends to the next game.
Charlie, tell people one more time how they can view what you're doing in the community and all.
Yes, anybody wants to follow what we're doing with the Best of the Batch Foundation, they actually can go to batchfoundation.org. This will give you an opportunity to see all of the 13 programs that we run throughout a calendar year. We service 3,800 kids annually. We are building a state-of-the-art educational facility, and that will now take our numbers to over 4,000 kids annually as we look to add 26,000 additional square feet to our existing building. So we're excited about that as we raise money as we continue to support our educational programs, our reading computer literacy programs, and our STEAM programs. Again, they can go to batchfoundation.org.
Fantastic work, Charlie. And as Heinz Ward would say, I take my hat off and hand it to you for sure. Charlie, thanks for spending time with us again on the Terrible Podcast. I know you have a flight to catch. Happy Friday, happy weekend to you. And once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Charlie.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And again, our thanks to Charlie Batch. You're probably already following him by now, but if you aren't, go ahead and follow him on Twitter at CharlieBatch16. Dave, great interview. I really appreciate you putting that one together. Always great to talk to Charlie.
Yeah, look, we talked about it last week, how we'd try to get maybe him or Bruce Gray. And look, I think we should get Bruce on too. Let's at some point here. And now's the time to do it. Charlie Batch is fantastic. I don't view Charlie as being two on the other side of the fence whatsoever. I've always thought he's been fair. Look, he's been in the building. He knows what these guys are going through. All right. So just because Alex and I have been really a lot of what Charlie has said is kind of lined up with what you and I have said. And look, here's another thing. Nothing makes you and I probably feel better than to have somebody as distinguished as him tell him that he sees our work and the objectivity that we put into our work. Nothing makes me that's the whole that makes the whole worthwhile doing what we do, I think, when you get those kind of comments there. And look, we were kind of labeled earlier this week the fanboy website that isn't as fanboy as most. Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, from that particular source, I think that's as good as it's going to get for us.
All right, but what did you think about what Charlie had to say overall?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the context and perspective with Fichtner is important. I mean, I want to be critical of Fichtner because, as Charlie said, he's the offensive coordinator. The buck stops with him when it comes to the offense. But it is important to look at it from the perspective of how hard it is to try to change things on the fly with a revolving door. And it wasn't like it was just one injury and Ben went down and Mason was the guy the rest of the way and everyone else stayed healthy and you kind of could recoup. That's not how it worked out. Actually, the offense looked probably at its best right after the bye week, or I think right after the bye week, basically from the next couple weeks on. It was decent. You kind of felt like the offense had started to kind of find its footing, and then more injuries happened in the Cleveland game, and everything kind of fell apart once again. So I think that is important perspective that he brought to the interview.
And we didn't tell him, hey, make sure you line up with what our own narratives have been for all off season here. I agree with him too. Look, we have a lot of tape on these guys, and we're going to look at certain aspects of what Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges did well and didn't do throughout the season. That's what we do. But throughout the whole process, we kept saying, man, let's see how. And I thought Charlie hit on it good. You come out first couple of games, defensive coordinators don't know a lot about you. What happens when they can actually have a little bit of tape to start game planning against you with? And we saw about 3 games into each of those guys' career, right? That starts that they made. That's when the issues happen there. I'm not. I'm obviously more so. On the bandwagon still of Mason Rudolph because of the way he kind of came back and finished there. But even so, I don't think you can draw hard conclusions about the play of either of these two quarterbacks. Now, look, was it did either of them light it on fire per se? No. I mean, look, if any of the two probably made more plays than the other, it was probably Devlin Hodges. But it sure would have been damn interesting to see Mason Rudolph finish up that Jets game and play against the Ravens. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it really would have been. Yeah, I just think you go into camp next year. These guys have learned a lot. Obviously, made a lot of mistakes, but that's typical for the nature of the position. How the youth that they're going through, and you see where they're at and what kind of improvement that they've made. But yeah, interesting stuff from Charlie. And for anyone hoping that he'll be the next quarterback coach, doesn't seem like that's in his plans in the immediate future.
Yeah, I think we about rule that out as well too, and that doesn't surprise me.
No, but we'll see. Maybe Bruce Gave an article yesterday, and we don't have to go into it now, but article yesterday on some quarterback coach options. Who knows if they're going to address it? It sounds like they're still open to the idea. I think there was a report from the Post-Gazette that said they're discussing it, but who knows if a hire is going to get made there.
What do you think about, I guess now is a good, about the Senior Bowl coaching staff? I mean, not Senior Bowl, the East-West game.
Yeah, you put that tinfoil hat on, Dave. I think you got a little
Sure.
tight. I know Blaine. All right, so for people who don't know Blaine, for the Shrine game, Blaine Stewart is going to be the quarterback coach for that game, and then Denzel Martin's going to be the special teams coordinator. And I know people will look at that and say, well, the Steelers have a quarterback coach opening, and special teams coordinator is not exactly a fan favorite outside of me. So, you could say you could put one or two and two together and get four, but I'm not quite that far.
You're not that far yet?
No, I just think I'm not even sure how they pick the coaches. I'm sure there's a lot of people competing for that. It's good to get those guys experience, of course, in general, just have the opportunity to coach, get some insight on the guys that are down there too, kind of behind the veil curtain. I think it's going to be valuable. So, nope, I'm not quite there with you.
It's not hard to look at it and think that though, right?
I mean, Stewart, it's good. Yeah, I don't know exactly what his background is, but he's always been a receiver. I mean, I don't think he's going to really transition to a true quarterback coach for the Steelers. And then Morton in special teams. I don't think even if Danny Smith were to get fired, I don't think they're going to replace Danny Smith with Denzel Martin.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
All right. Well, I'm just glad those guys are getting the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worked their way up the ladder. They were assistants, and Martin's on the scouting side for a couple of years with the Steelers initially as an intern, actually, I believe, and he's kind of starting to climb up the ranks. So good for those guys.
And especially when it comes to that game in particular, a lot, obviously if they don't, make the Senior Bowl cut, the next crop usually in that East-West game, and boy, quite a few special teamers can come out of that group as well too. Sometimes, right? Backup guys.
And often you'll see when injuries happen at the Senior Bowl, guys from the Shrine game will get called up and brought in over to Mobile. So it's a good chance for those guys to, because obviously if you're just the coach down there and you can't work behind the scenes, now these guys are going to be in classroom settings with these prospects and can really understand how these guys are wired and how they work, and any sort of information on those players is going to be really valuable in the scouting process.
Boy, when is that taking place?
It's the week before the Senior Bowl. So Senior Bowl's starting the week of the 19th, 20th, and so next week I think is a Shrine game.
Well, let's see. Today's the 10th, right?
Yep.
And that means the Shrine game is the 18th, right?
Right. Yeah. So practice starts basically next week, runs through the weekend. Senior Bowl's right after that.
So here we are.
So, and again, Daniel Valente and I are going to the Senior Bowl. Everything's booked, so we'll be down there. I'm flying out on the 19th. We'll be down there, not for the game, just for the week of practice, which is usually how things go, how we've operated, how most people down there actually operate. Most people don't stay for the game, so we'll have a lot of Senior Bowl coverage for you guys.
All right, look, now I will gladly VCR the Bachelor or whatnot for you guys, okay?
Thank you. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss it on Monday. So
all right, I don't want you guys worry about any of that and not doing any, missing some work time, okay? I want you guys concentrating on football, all right?
All right, good deal. All right, let's quickly transition back to the Steelers, and we've been going through positional breakdowns. We've done running backs, we've done quarterbacks today. We're talking tight ends, and then we kind of touched on. We actually had a pretty lengthy discussion on Vance McDonald on Wednesday, showing what his future is going to hold. But look at him in the position as a whole. I think you would say, regardless of what happens with Vance, this tight end position is still one that probably needs to be addressed in the draft.
I would think so, man. You had Nick Vannett, some of his quotes right after the season surface out. Come out the last few days here, wrote about that yesterday. He obviously would like to be back, but what's his value right now? And would he be smarter than maybe right now to take the Steelers' best offer and maybe shop himself around in free agency? Or the Steelers going to be, look, you got to take this or we're going to have to go move on in a different direction? Going to be interested to see the cat and mouse game really that takes place between the Steelers and Nick Vannett, if indeed they really want him back. And you would think that Vannett would know now whether or not the Steelers do kind of would like to maybe have him back. We heard that they like Nick Vannett ahead of that draft, okay? And they went out and traded for him as it looks like right now, and I wrote this yesterday in the Post, it looks like a 13-game rental for a 5th-round draft pick, all right? Mm-hmm. Would you do that again, knowing how things have gone right now? I don't think I would, but, they're going to have to do something to shore up, I think, this tight end position ahead of the draft. Is that bring back Vannett and pick up the option, 2020 option of McDonald? Is it let McDonald's option, and don't pick it up. Make sure you get Vannett back and then go into the draft. I don't know, but this is you look at what's in the barrel right now, and it's not overly, doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies.
It doesn't. If they decline McDonald's option, I think it's very likely they bring back Fournette for cheap, but just in the way that when Jesse left last year, they tendered Grimble, which I think was a mistake just in terms of the cost, and obviously it didn't work out in terms of production, but just to kind of make sure that room isn't totally gutted with almost entirely new faces for the offseason and heading into 2020. So if McDonald's gone, I think Vannette's going to be there. If you pick up the option McDonald, again, with Vannette, I would pay him the minimum. I would pay him a penny more. Now he does make a good point, and he talked about in the trip about, quote, I definitely learned a lot about myself. Being able to make the switch in teams 3 weeks into the season isn't easy for anyone. I traveled across the country about as far away as you could go, moved myself to Pittsburgh and had to focus on football and not really missing a beat. That is important context. It is tough for a player to try to switch teams middle of the year, pick up a new system, new scheme, all that stuff, and then just life in general, trying to transition yourself, and that's not going to make your play any better, and that is important context to understand. Still, I think it was a pretty tough year for Vannett. He's a low ceiling guy as a receiver that's never going to change as a blocker. He was worse than what I thought and hoped and expected. So he's a number 2, preferably a number 3 type tight end.
Yeah, that's the way I have him as well. But, look, we heard Vance McDonald talk about after his first season about not having that off-season program, the complete OTAs and training camp to work with the timing or whatnot, with Ben and all like that, and how it had him kind of behind the 8 ball the whole time there. So it is part of it that needs to be considered. But even so, man, you just don't view a lot of upside overall with Nick Vannett.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why, again, I would not pay him anything more than the minimum. And then with Vance, we talked about Vance. We don't have to rehash it all. I still maintain, even if you do pick up the option on McDonald, you have to pair him with another tight end that can basically play half the snaps, because McDonald is a 500-snap season type of guy. That's that sweet spot where you're going to maximize his ability without overburdening him, while obviously still getting some production and value out of him. That's what he's played. All his best seasons have come playing about 500 snaps this season. He played 700-something last year. Too much for him. He looked like a shell of himself. So even if he is brought back, you got to find that really strong tight end 2 to basically split snaps 50-50.
Yeah, and look, I mean, where are we at in Gentry and all this?
Again, as we talked about, it's hard to say because he do play 52 snaps, I think, on offense this year. I mean, you would expect some sort of growth and improvement, but Gentry's not going to prevent me from adding any sort of really quality talent to that room.
Yeah, same with me.
And then beyond that, I mean, you go to the real, off-season guys. Christian Scotland-Williams, who's been part of the International Pathway Program for the last 2 years, did show improvement last year, which was encouraging, but probably not enough that you would need to see. Kevin Rader's been a blocking type who, again, low-ceiling type of guy, did well to kind of stick around the practice squad for most of last year, bounced on and off, but none of those guys are going to be real threats to a roster spot in 2020.
We wouldn't think so at the very least, right? We're going to probably see a futures guy or two here signed in the near future. Right. And this obviously, look, the tight end position, I guess is what else do we have to say about it? I mean, we'll wait and see. It's a wait and see as far as McDonald goes and his 2020 option. Nick Vannett scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent. You obviously have Gentry under contract right now, and then Radar and Scotty below that. Once again, I circle back. It doesn't give you a lot of warm and fuzzies right now when it comes to that position. Nor does my initial look ahead at the tight end class. Now, I'm not making any hard analysis here just yet, because I'm what I try to do, Alex, I try to go and watch a quick little bit on each of these players, especially the ones that are going to be in like the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl game and all like that at certain positions that I think the Steelers will need, just so I can start the initial talk about them. And I'm making a harder effort to get more up on as many players quicker than ever this year. And in doing so, you can't always watch 3 games on a guy. But I don't know what you think, but my initial look at this tight end class, man, it's not very deep and definitely not top heavy.
Yeah, I need to go through it more. I can probably talk. I'm gonna spend this weekend watching a lot of tight ends. For the Senior Bowl, because that's going to be kind of the number one position to look at down in Mobile. I know I watched Jared Pinkney. I have a report. I think it's either posted or about to be posted on him out of Vanderbilt. Who I think is a decently well-rounded guy. He needs to work on his blocking, but isn't going to be special in any one area. I know you have some other reports on Hopkins. Tom Meat did a report on Bryson Hopkins. So I mean, is there anyone out there that you? I know you don't seem too enthused by this group. Is there any name that you kind of watched and said, I like this guy more than the rest?
Not yet. No. I mean, look, Pickney, I think, is an interesting prospect, but even he's kind of a bigger guy. And look, I you know me, I look more for those traditional types.
Well, you don't think Pinkney's a traditional type?
No, I think he is. I just don't
Okay.
think he's a blue chip.
Yeah.
I don't view him as a first. And look, I don't know how to stack these guys yet because I haven't seen the entire class deep. But my initial thought of Pinkney was, all right, this is kind of a third or fourth round guy.
Okay. Is there anyone you like more than Pinkney that you want?
The quick look, I looked at the Notre Dame kid.
Mm-hmm.
Looks,
What do you like about him?
He's got youth on his side. I like the ability to get up the field with him. I think his blocking, although his blocking could use some improvement there. I think there's something to work with him. A lot of these guys that are going to be considered top of this wide receiver class are really slot wide, big slots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the nature of the position in college football. That's what makes it tough.
Right, a lot of these guys are flexing out, so you don't see the kid from Missouri,
Alberto.
Alberto.
I don't want to pronounce his last name.
Right. He's got some interesting tape. That the thing is, I just didn't see a lot in the quick overview that I had on him. Not a lot of. Here's the good news. He lined up in the line of scrimmage. Quite a bit, but you don't find that much of him actually doing some run blocking out there, at least not yet.
Yeah.
I think he's the guy that's really. It's too bad the Arkansas kid ran into trouble with that program and all.
Mm-hmm. It's just so hard to find that complete tight end in college. The nature of the game doesn't really allow it because they are glorified receivers. They don't do a lot of blocking as a spread system. They're not hand to the ground, 3-point stance kind of guys. So it's hard to find that guy that can do it all. And the guys that are like that are very, very rare, and they tend to go really high and probably well before Pittsburgh can be picking at 49.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we don't see this team getting away from some of the core things. That they look for, right, in tight ends, kind of being more of an all-around type. Although Gentry wasn't, necessarily that kind of guy. At least he did have, some tape of him being kind of end of the line of scrimmage guy. Mm-hmm. But overall, his blocking left a lot to be desired coming out of college. Now, he was able to get down the field and do some things, as far as catching the football that we really yet have seen, much or any of that because he only dressed for 3 games anyway. So are any of these tight ends that they wind up maybe having to wait on, let's say the 4th, 5th round, going to be any better than what they have in Gentry? And it's probably not. So, I mean, look, we still have a lot to go through with this class and all like that because even a guy like George Kittle, I don't think popped right out of the start of the draft season. It took a couple weeks into it, but even so, I don't think there's a George, at least in my initial look, I don't think there's a George Kittle in this class here. And there are, like I said, Pinkney is interesting. The kid out of Missouri is interesting there, but a few of these other kids, like the Florida Atlantic kid and the Purdue kid, just more big slots.
I've heard some good things about Mitchell Wilcox from, I believe, South Florida. I haven't watched him, but
I haven't watched him. And who's the kid? The smaller, the other kind of smaller.
The Dayton kid.
Yeah, the Dayton kid.
Adam T. I don't know his last name.
I haven't watched any of him yet either.
Yeah. I mean, we know it's so rare for this team to go into that pool. He will be at the Senior Bowl. I think the first flyer to ever be at the Senior Bowl, I believe. And so we'll get to watch him, see if he can make some money on a big stage.
Right. So, I mean, but just the initial feeling that I get from this class is, but maybe that changes here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, Adam Trotman, by the way, is his name. Just to throw that out there again, he'll be at the Senior Bowl. Yeah, it's tough. So does that compel you more to hold on to McDonald, saying if we let him go, the options to replace him might somehow be worse or at least about the same?
Yeah, maybe it does. I mean, at least initially here, because
Right.
okay, let's say there is one or two maybe blue chippers at the top, guys that you would put, a first or second round grade on. Okay, how guaranteed are you to get one of those two guys?
Right. Probably not very likely. Again, sitting there at 49 with that flexibility to go up, probably you can't count on it. Certainly can't count on it.
I don't want to make, once again, I don't want to, sitting here in January, make any sweeping evaluations here about, positional draft class. But, when Kevin Colbert does usually meet at the combine every year, when he talks, he usually gives a pretty good overview of, well, this class is deep here, this class, and usually he's right on, right? I mean,
Yeah, he'll
why
tell
would he
you.
lie?
Right, he'll tell you kind of how he feels about the class and the depth of it. So that's always interesting to hear from him.
And I'll be surprised if he says, "Look, this is a solid, deep tight end class." I don't expect those words to come out of his mouth there. So it is a bit concerning. And look, I know people say, "Well, look, maybe try to trade for one of these guys or address it in free agency." With what? I think we'd all like Hunter Henry, right? But
Yeah,
but what's the odds of that happening there? And who's I'm drawing a blank here. Who's the
Cooper.
I like Hooper too, but I mean he's probably going to be cream of the crop, and those guys usually get paid. The top guys, especially when you look at how weak top to bottom this free agent tight end class is going to be.
Yeah, Hooper's going to get paid way, way too much for what the Steelers can afford, and he wants to be a starter and a full-time kind of guy. One guy I do want to look at, I'm just looking at a website here with some very basic bio information, height, weight, projected 40 time, and we mentioned him, I think you mentioned him actually on Wednesday's show, Stephen Sullivan from LSU. He's listed 6'5", well, basically 6'6", 242, with a 40 time, I guess is some sort of projection of a 4.58. And if he can do that at that size, LSU playing in that system, he's going to be at the Senior Bowl. That might be a guy that I want to take a really good look at.
Yeah, they don't use them tight ends over there, do they?
All right. Only 12K. He had more production last year. Only 12 receptions this year, which was weird because in a year where they had great quarterback play with Burrow, that's surprising. But that's a guy you may want to project out a little bit.
And generally, though, the Steelers like production to be part of the prerequisite, right?
Yeah, but beggars can't be choosers. Kind of phrase that's coming to mind. This is to revenge on missing out on Foster Moreau to get Stephen Sullivan, the other LSU guy.
What was I know Foster Moreau didn't light it up.
He had more production, I believe, than what Sullivan did. I can look.
I thought so as well too, and I thought that's why we kind of had him on both of our lists there for a long time.
Well, it was still 2 years basically. Senior year, caught 22 passes, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. Junior year, 24 receptions. Sullivan had better production, I believe, as a junior, and his numbers came down as a senior. I don't know if there was an injury or a play or what. So I don't know. It's hard to find high end production with some of these guys.
Right.
Yeah, Sullivan as a junior had 23 receptions, only 12 as a senior, but only played in 6 games too. So looks like there was an injury there that kind of limited production.
We're going to be talking about tight end position quite a bit, I think, for the next most of the offseason there.
Yeah, and hopefully it's more cheery and optimistic than it is right now, but I know we have a long ways to go. A lot of profiles being churned out on Steelers Depot on some of these tight ends, and of course we'll be down there in Mobile getting a good close look at the position. All right, Dave, any other final thoughts with tight end, or you want to move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
All right, I don't have a whole lot else here, Dave. Is there anything else you want to talk about in today's show, or else we can get into some picks and finish up with some reader emails?
All right, we got everything covered that we talked about pre-show already? Wow.
I have something written down on my notes. It's illegible, which is common for me, so maybe we're missing something, but I think that's everything.
Okay, then I guess we should kind of get to my bookie and look at some of these games. Obviously, the two teams that I had in the Super Bowl this year are already out of things. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to watch the games moving forward here. But a nice crop of games in the divisional round of the playoffs here. Looking at the lines on mybookie.ag, we have first up Minnesota Vikings at the San Francisco 49ers. Vikings, Adam Thielen, I think, is still kind of battling a little bit of an injury there. Vikings did a great job in that game last week, for sure, against the Saints there. San Francisco obviously having the first week of the playoffs off. San Francisco favored by 7 points at home, Alex.
Well, I had the 49ers going to the Super Bowl, so I'm going to roll with San Francisco here. Thielen's been a weird year. A lot of injuries, got cut. That's the most recent thing. He had cut on his ankle, I think, needed stitches. Not sure what his status is going to be. Practice trips have been limited. I worry about the 49ers defense a little bit. The defensive line kind of waned at the end of the year. The secondary is kind of young, but Sherman's had a really bounce-back type year. The safety play is decent, so give me the 49ers.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are going to be able to get after Kirk Cousins in this game. And, boy, if Thielen's not 100% and if they're not able to – look, I think Minnesota's got to come out and try to run that football, right? For sure. But I just think San Francisco having enough time to game plan against. Here's the thing: we talk. Sometimes you need your defense to stand up and win a game or two for you during the playoffs. This would be a perfect opportunity for the Vikings to have that from their defense, I think. But I just think San Francisco is going to be too tough in this game. So give me San Francisco to cover that 7. Tennessee Titans on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. Tennessee is going to have to run the football much like they did this past week against the who was it? Patriots there if they're going to win this game here. The Ravens have had a lot of time off here. I think there's still a little bit of question about Mark Ingram, about his status. But other than that, this Ravens team should be ready to go. And, big line in this one, 9.5 Baltimore Ravens at home.
That is a big line. Even if Ingram can't play, a Steeler fan saw what Gus Edwards can do, and for $130 on Pittsburgh, so I wouldn't be too worried about that if Ingram is not able to suit up. But I think the hope and expectation is that he'll be able to play. Listen, the Titans did was great. Mike Vrabel's done a really good job. Derrick Henry's an awesome running back, but for as well as they ran the ball last week against New England, they only scored 14 points. 14 points is not going to be enough to beat Baltimore. You got to be able to score a lot more than that. So I just think the Titans' offense is still going to be limited, too capped, and Baltimore's too well-rounded. So give me Baltimore to even cover and win pretty big in this one.
Man, I hate to go with you on this one, but I have no choice. I just, I don't. Because of all the things you said, I'm not convinced Tennessee could score enough.
Yeah. They can run the ball well, but it does not translate immediately into points.
Plain and simple. I think that's what it's going to come down to. And this Ravens, if you give this Ravens defense an opportunity just to pin their ears back, if Baltimore goes down there and gets a little bit of lead, that's going to make it even tougher on there. I think Baltimore's just going to do what they do and dare Tennessee to try to stop them. I don't think they're going to be able to. So give me Baltimore, unfortunately, big in this one, cover that 9.5. Houston, Texans at Kansas City Chiefs. Houston beat Kansas City earlier in the season there. Kansas City, though, at home, at Arrowhead. Another big spread for the home team here. 9.5 points for Kansas City, Alex.
Well, the Chiefs are my Super Bowl champs, so I'm going to roll with Kansas City. Again, these big lines here for playoff games. Pretty bizarre to see these lines so large. But the Chiefs, I know that Houston beat them, but I will say the Chiefs defense is playing a whole lot better. Mike Pennell at nose tackles was a really valuable midseason addition for them. That might be someone I'd be interested in if I'm Pittsburgh for a cheap nose tackle role going forward into the offseason. But that defense has really kind of taken a lot of steps forward, and it's hard to go against Mahomes and company. So give me the Chiefs here.
Man, it's hard to it's all chalk, man. All chalk. And I got to do something to try. I don't know what way I'm going to actually turn this in when I turn it into the man here. But I think between me and you, because I have to catch you or try to make up a game or two on you here when I can, I'll assume that Houston can maybe do enough to run the football here and do enough with Watson and Nuke Hopkins and all offensively to make a little bit of difference in this game. I think Kansas City still wins this game, but I think that extra hook of a half point here will come into play maybe. So give me Houston plus 9.5, even though I think Kansas City wins this game outright. All right, Seattle and Green Bay. Seattle got to go into Green Bay. Green Bay favored at 4 against the Seahawks team. Do we really know who this Seahawks team is or are right now at this point? Green Bay at home favored by 4.
Do we know who the Packers are? Because they feel like they can be a hit or miss group as well. This is the one I'm probably least confident in. I'm gonna at least have Seattle cover this thing, even though they're going in a Lambeau and that's a really tough place to play. I just don't have a good feel for this one, but I'll go Seattle to cover it.
Yeah, I think you got two Aarons that if both these Aarons are do what they're supposed to do in this game, I don't think it matters, to be honest with you. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones. Yeah, I think Aaron Jones a lot of money this year. But anyway, I just don't think Seattle's going to be able to go in there and do some of the things that they want to do offensively. I think that Packers defense is a little bit better than people give them credit for. You give that offense a little extra time to prepare for Seattle there. Give me Green Bay to cover the 4 points at home against Seattle.
All right, good deal. And that's all of them, right?
That is all of them there. And let's see, what else do we have here? Do we want to try to get to some emails here?
Yeah, let's do that to close out the show.
All right, question for the podcast from Charles Emmering. He writes in, longtime listener, love the show, Jets. I wonder if we are dismissing Sean Davis too quickly. He has shown steady improvement despite being moved around a lot, and he is still a very athletic player. Could he go back to strong safety and help sometimes struggling Edmonds? He probably has better ball skills and is at least as good as of a tackler. Money may prohibit this possibility, though. I have to admit, though, thought of two athletes like he and Minka flying around in the back end is pretty intriguing. And Dave, I hope your wife does not get jealous of your lust for Iowa tight ends. Yeah, if she only knew. Some things you got to keep from your wife, and my love for Iowa tight ends is one of those things. Alex, trains are cool. They were good enough for Johnny Cash. Peace, Charlie.
All right, well, I'm glad you liked the train, Charlie. Actually, it's funny you bring up Sean Davis. I don't disagree with that assessment of really him at all, but there's an article today we have written by Matthew Marksey. According to Penn Live, Sean Davis was saying he does not have any interest in taking a 1-year kind of prove-it deal. He says it's, quote, not really a part of my plan. Now, it may become part of his plan based on the market, but it's just really hard to envision him coming back to Pittsburgh. He kind of knows the writing's on the wall. He wants to play. He wants to start. He wants to get paid probably all more than what Pittsburgh can offer him.
Yeah, look, if they, they would probably be open to bring him back at the minimum, but I just can't see that happen. I think Sean Davis rightfully should go try to test free agency, and there's probably going to be a team out there want to pay him a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, this guy's been a starting safety until he got hurt. He's been starting for 2 years now. I mean, he doesn't want to go into that backup role in Pittsburgh.
Right. I don't see him coming back. Yeah. I can't find a way where that's going to happen, and I think the two need a break from each other anyway. Jay Barbardi writes in, what kind of contract would be good for Juju? What would be an insult? Yes. Look, putting top 10 for him, putting him in top 10 might be, I don't know. Is that enough bargain for the Steelers to pursue? Is that too big of an insult for Juju?
I don't know. It doesn't feel like an insult immediately. It would just depend. But again, I don't see the incentive for Juju to even have those discussions when your value is this low and you're coming off this tough of a year. Why not just bet on yourself? I'm sure Juju, as much as anybody's going to assume he's going to be able to come back next year, play well, stay healthy, play with Ben. Numbers are going to certainly at least improve upon this year. They can't get a whole lot worse. So just really no reason for him to even entertain a deal right now.
When you're looking at top 10, top 12, you're looking at 14 to 15 million a season.
Yeah, and if he has a good year, he's going to be getting top 5 kind of money. So why do it now?
Right. Just because of the cap situation and the 30% rule and the way this team is up against the cap and coming off the season, that Juju had, none of it points toward Juju or James Conner getting a deal here. So yeah, Juju should go into his final year, and there's enough incentive there now for him to go out and stay healthy, have a repeat of the season that he had in his second season there in 2018. And if he does that, he'll come away with the franchise tag and a big deal.
Yep, exactly.
So once again, look, I mean, I just can't see him accepting a deal for $14 million a year right now.
Yeah, I just don't see the point in it. He's not hurting for money. He's got a lucrative, life elsewhere with sponsorships and ads and Twitch and whatever he's doing. The dude does not need the cash now.
Here's a good one from Darren Boyer, college player profiles. This is a real technical question here, Alex. Hi, Dave and Alex. I've been reading the awesome draft-eligible player profiles on the site the past few years and really enjoy the analysis. Boy, Darren, those guys, all of our guys really do a great job on that. How does the SD team decide which players to profile first and which players you will cover throughout the whole process? Thanks, Darren. Let me tell you, I run the ship with a what's the term? An iron fist here. S&D or Steelers Depot is very complicated, complex, very demanding of the people to provide content here. No, in all seriousness, Darren, here's how complicated it is. We put up a Google sheet and we give the link to all the guys who do profiles there, and we say, pick a name, any name. Pick a guy that you want to profile. Sign up for him. It's like a sign-up sheet. We ask that the guys don't go more than 3 players deep, if you will. In other words, we don't want people hoarding the good players there while they work on getting the profiles done. We ask that they try to get the profile done, within a reasonable amount of time once they claim that player. And obviously, we ask that they try to, or at least in the early stages here, keep it more towards maybe positional need when it comes to the Steelers and guys that maybe they think the Steelers might be interested in. But regardless, by the time this whole process works out, we're usually around the 200 player mark, right, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to this, so it's not very complicated at all. Just letting more than anything, it's more of letting the right hand know what the left hand's doing here.
Yeah, basically you can pick whoever you want. I know for me right now I'm focusing on Senior Bowl guys because obviously I'm going to go down to the Senior Bowl, so it gives me a good chance to get familiar with them. We look at some of the top prospects, obviously team need, and then clearly any guys that get brought in for pre-draft visits when the time comes, any guys where it seems like the team does have legitimate interest. Of course, you want to have reports on all those players, so that's kind of the focus there when things start getting closer to draft time. But it's, we're doing 200 names. You just, eventually you're going to probably cover your bases in terms of all the key guys you want to hit. So got a great team, doing a great job so far. We've already got, I think, 7 profiles up already on Steelers Depot a week into this thing. And our goal, again, is to do at least 200 this year.
Yeah, shouldn't have a problem with that, and we'll get a lot of great information from Alex and Daniel when they go down to the Senior Bowl. I mostly like to focus on tight ends and edge rushers, and then obviously the closer that we get get to the draft, I like to start doing some contextualization, looking kind of play by play, and doing kind of quick overall charting for the site on whatever play. And I have felt I'll be doing that maybe on some tight ends this year. Going more in depth on a few of the tight ends once we get, probably past the combine and all. And look, another thing Alex and I do too that people should be excited for is Alex and I watch every single bit of the combine, and in real time, we track that stuff. And how long have we done that, or how long have I done that, and how long have you done it with me now, Alex?
I mean, since I've joined, I've been doing that with you, and I know that's a real big, valuable resource to people. I know people love your contextualizations. I know those get some really good responses. So, yeah, you know how it is in our Pro Day Tracker. I obsess about the Pro Day Tracker, trying to find.
You want to talk about obsessive compulsive when it comes to that, just scanning hours of tape to get one glimpse of a guy with with a Steelers logo, right?
Right. I remember with Temple last year trying to find whoever the representative was there when we thought they were going to take Rock Ya-Sin, and I found Brandon Hunt just in the obscure, middle of a frame Twitter video. But anyway, so you guys know how things go draft-wise, but it's a labor of love, but it's a really fun time of year.
Real quick, look, we're not, not going to have first-round draft pick this year, and I came to the realization last few days ago that, man, we're not going to be able to participate in a lot of these early mock drafts and write them up. And what's that meme goes around from Squidward SquarePants or what?
Squidward.
Okay, that looking through the grate or whatnot down below.
Yeah.
That's going to be us during the early part of mock draft season, not be able to write these things up. But obviously, we'll have our own mock drafts as time goes on here. But how close do you think the Steelers make their second round pick become their the classification for the first round pick? Do we think we're going to see major conference guy and a lot of the same rules apply?
I don't know. It's really hard to say. This is obviously uncharted territory. The Steelers have not had a first round pick since 1967. So I mean, I don't know. Obviously, as you get in the second round, I think it's harder to be that exclusive with the list because the pool is going to be smaller, and you're just trying to find some really good talent. There are a lot of trends in the second round that are similar to the first round. It's still normally Power Five. I think the last time they went non-Power Five in the second round, I believe, was 2004 as well, when they went, on Power 5 in the first round. Ricardo Coakley in the second round after taking Ben in the first, I believe, on that. Someone can check me on that fact. So there's a lot of similarities between round 1 and round 2, but it's a good question because this is, again, uncharted territory for us.
All right, Brett Now writes in, hey, Devin Knox, I want to make 3 quick points. Heard your review of running back and quarterback. I agree completely. Why you could upgrade those positions, you simply have too many other needs and not enough capital to address them. Look, I'm not going to make sweeping. I know better to make hard sweeping predictions at this point, man. But, Alex, I just cannot see this team drafting a running back or a quarterback in the second round for sure. Either one of those 2 positions. Maybe my mind will change once we get past, learn more about Ben Roethlisberger and all like that. And I'll be hard pressed to where I stand right now to get on board of either of those two positions being addressed in the second round.
I think running back's a lot more likely than quarterback, but I still don't find it as terribly likely. But again, it's January 10th. We're very early in this process. A lot of information can change. I know it is a really good running back class, and it's somebody that could, in theory, provide a pretty immediate impact. But I think everyone's coming back. They still like James Conner. They really, I think, were impressed by Benny Snell. It's hard to see them making that investment.
Brett goes on to write, I also heard your discussion about non-tendering Vance McDonald. There's not a tender there, Brett. It's just picking up the option. It's not really, it's really just an option decision there. He goes, my question is the McDonald we saw in 2019 worth $16 million rounded up?
How much? 16?
No, $6 million. I'm sorry. 2019 worth $6 million rounded. Is he $5 million better than Vanette? Now, I rely on you guys to review the tape in a way that I can't. I don't have time. But on TV tape, what I saw was 2 guys who could be clones. Neither could block effectively or create separation in the passing game. Did I miss something on the All-22? In my opinion, I couldn't really see the difference. Both of them. I guess he's I feel that a rookie Foster Moreau would still be an upgrade. As an example, rookie tight end you might draft. Thoughts? Look, we're not ready to say any rookie tight ends that we're willing to draft yet, I don't think. But I also don't think McDonald and Vanette are clones, even though both of them were not great, in 2019.
Well, I think in a vacuum, their play was very similar in 2019. Neither of them played well. McDonald was a little bit better than Vanette, but they were still really poor. So point taken there. Again, it goes back to what I said Wednesday of why was McDonald so poor? Was he hurt? Was he playing through something? Or is this just his body simply breaking down after being in the league for so long? If it's the former and it just was a nagging injury he played through because he had to gut it out because they had no one else to take those snaps, then you say, okay, let's bring him back. And if it's the latter and his body just simply breaking down, then you need to have a very serious conversation about moving on from him. So it's a question I can't answer, but it's a valid concern.
All right, he goes on to write, you used to have a segment on a podcast at least once a week that really should have been titled The Butler Did It, where you would point out any number of poor matchups that Steelers D was put in, like guarding all pro receivers with outside linebackers, etc. Since Minka arrived, I haven't heard that segment. My question is, has these schematic issues stopped, or has the laundry list of offensive issues just crowded out? If they have disappeared, is it fair to say that maybe Butler was forced into those issues because he didn't trust his safeties? Can you think of another explanation? I'll take my tinfoil hat off and now listen to your answer. Love the offseason work you two put in. Making the Steelers miss their playoffs again tolerable. Keep up the great work. Look, here's the thing. You have more talent on that defense. There's going to be less gaps to talk about, right, Alex? And I think you've done a breakdown of even how much less dime that they were in this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Butler credit because regardless of the pieces you have, a safety is always better than an outside linebacker on Sammy Watkins, for example, or Bostic on Keenan Allen. Regardless of, if the safety play might not even be the best, it's still the preferable option. So I think Butler's done a better job to put this offense in better matchups, to have better personnel groupings, to have better responses. There's still some complaints about substitutions and trying to make changes when the offense isn't changing in some relatively minor things that kind of popped up through the year. So there was improvement. I think that is important. But at the same time, obviously, anytime you give any defensive coordinator, 10, 11 first round picks, that defense better play well. And that's what the Steelers did. So I think Butler and Tomlin and whoever's running that defense did a better job this year. Credit to them. But again, the talent was so overflowing. It's hard not to have a good defense with that group of players.
And it's so hard to have a regular segment set up on this show other than, trying to outline what we do with beat writers once.
Well, I think he's being jokey in the sense of I was always bringing up an issue because there was a weekly, it felt like weekly, there was always a problem. So it wasn't a dedicated segment. It's just one of those things that happened because the problems were so numerous. So it has been cleaned up. That's why I don't talk about it as much. And credit it is earned there by Butler and company. But the overwhelming talent certainly has played a factor.
Look, we'll point out whatever needs to be pointed out, regardless of the side of football. Plain and simple,
Yeah.
Bryce writes in, asked this before, but you weren't ready to answer. But now that we're a week removed from the end of the season, who, in your opinion, is the offensive MVP? Ben Roethlisberger. No. DeCastro. Who would be the offensive MVP for this team?
In my little award segment I did right after the season, and then I gave the Offensive Player of the Year award to DeCastro. It feels a little hollow because there weren't a lot of good options there, but yeah, I went DeCastro.
Yeah, it feels kind of, well, here you go, Look, Deontay Johnson did some good things. James Washington did some good things throughout the season, but I think top of the line, when you look at, you obviously can't give it to a quarterback. I don't really think you can give it to a wide receiver or a running back for obvious reasons. You damn sure can't give it to a tight end either there. So it becomes a member of the offensive line there, and a lot of high success rate with Double D going right to left. So I think he's got to be your offensive MVP. Alex, now that you've started to break down draft prospects, I've got some special requests. Please show my fellow Dayton Flyers some love and do a full breakdown of Adam Trotman. Yeah, has anybody claimed that yet? I might jump on him.
I don't know if anyone has. I haven't, but I got to find some Dayton tape. I don't know exactly where that's going to pop up at. That's not going to be the most accessible thing in the world, but he'll be at the Senior Bowl, so we'll definitely talk about him then.
Right, and I'll try to look in the underground and see what I can find in full Dayton games. It'll be tough to do. All World put up huge numbers, dominated at his level, kind of like Javon Hargrave did, played his best ball against his best competition, big, can move, good speed, great hands, comes from a program that believes in being physical at a point of attack, and I think you'll would grow into a consistent blocker at the next level. Would love to see him in a Steelers uniform. Would like to see a breakdown of Columbia's Josh Wainwright. Smooth, you want to talk about fun to get, hard to get tape. Smooth wide lane. We've already got how many? We got about, I think we got 40, all 22 tapes from different various colleges.
Yeah, I don't think I need Columbia or Dayton. All 22, though, unfortunately.
I don't know. Maybe we should jump on trying to email some of these.
I've done that before. Actually, I've gotten tape from schools before by just emailing schools and being like, "Hey, can I have some tape?" But
we all know how much time I have on my hands, which I don't.
I have Jamie Metter Ashland tape on a CD laying around somewhere. Remember Jamie Metter? He's still in the league, actually. He was a Cleveland Brown. But sometimes schools will give you some tape.
All right, smooth wide receiver can play in the slot and is a good combat catch guy. Do you have any initial thoughts on those two players? Bryce, it's still early in the process, brother. I'm trying to play catch up, and I know Alex is as well too here. Ted Webb writes in, being on Terrell Edmonds being a first round pick 2 years ago. He'll be going into year 3 next year. Maybe it's me, but I've seen no growth from him, except he's always available most of the time. what does it say? Grow from him, except he's always available most of the time. Red online, he had second most snaps on defense, almost 96%. 0 interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, 0 sacks, and only 2 tackles for loss. Have we seen his ceiling, or can he get better? It's like 2020 needs to be a make or break, or am I expecting too much? Thanks, Ted. Ted, look, here's the thing with him. He's not making plays, but he's also, I mean, look, for the amount of times he was targeted, I think Alex put some of these snaps up. Obviously, his stats against when targeted weren't great this year. Have we seen his ceiling with him? I don't know. It took us five seasons to find out what Bud Dupree could do. You're not going to have that long to do with Edmonds, because look, him being a former first round pick, you now have this year to decide whether or not you're going to pick up a 5th-year option on him, right?
Yeah, I forget the whole. Well, he's going into his 3rd year, so would you have another year?
What I'm saying is he has this year coming up to decide after this year.
Oh, after this year. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're going to have to decide after this year whether or not you want to pick up that 5th-year option.
Mm-hmm.
So this 2020 is going to be a huge year for him. What's got you most concerned about Edmonds, other than him just not making plays?
Well, it's that.
I know it's huge, but
yeah, no, it is that. It's the lack of playmaking. And I have an article planned for sometime in the relative near future to kind of put that in perspective about how bad the lack of playmaking has been for Terrell Edmonds. But I think what you said about Dupree is really important. I think if anything, if Bud Dupree has taught us anything, it's that some patience can be required. Guys break out at different levels. I think Edmonds has shown improvement, smaller than what I would like it to be, but there was improvement from year 1 to year 2, more physical, consistent tackler. Those things did improve by some smaller margins. But yeah, I mean, the lack of production is an issue. But he's 22. This should be his rookie year because he came out a year early, so you want to be a little bit of patient, show a little bit of patience with him. But I obviously understand the concern.
There definitely wasn't any kind of a jump that, first to second year, especially a guy that's played as many snaps as he has.
Right.
It'd be one thing if we're talking about a Sean Davis or an Artie Burns situation coming out of their rookie years where they only played half a season, and then really the second season is really their first or whatnot. This is a guy in Edmonds who's been on the field a whole hell of a lot,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's played like 2,000 snaps in his career, and he's got 1 turnover.
Right. So this is going to be could he get beat out? For his job this year, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it really would probably take a high round draft pick investment and really an impressive player to do that. So, I mean, this is going to be Edmonds' 3rd year. I think both of us expect him to at least start the season as a starter, and it's going to be a big season for him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure about him losing his job. I think I can't really see a scenario where that plays out, at least not as we see it here today, but 2020 will be a pretty critical year for him, no question.
Rob Jones writes in, Alex, can you do a deep dive into the financial benefits of the Minka trade, how the Steelers benefited like the Dolphins did with Josh Rosen, money already paid on the rookie contract, etc.?
Me? Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't do that, Dave. That's a you thing.
He goes on to say, Dave, your salesmanship has got me looking forward to my 6-pack of Goodies popcorn that's on the way. Hopefully they have sent some to Alex as well. I sent some to Alex right out of sheet there to get his opinion on, and he definitely liked it there. Look, you had the Dolphins already eat the any proration of the signing bonus there. So you got a guy still on his rookie contract overall. You'll have the option, the 5th-year option with him, to pick up a 5th-year option on him. So that's a plus there. And just the fact that you had this kid on a rookie contract overall, even though you missed the first year of it, I mean, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you paid him, a portion of a $1.227, $1.2 million salary. I think you more than got your value out of him when it goes to that. And in 2020, he's going to make less than $2 million in 2020. So you get the value there. Even in 2021, it jumps up to $2.7 million. There's a lot of value there. Now, obviously, before the 2021 season gets underway, you're going to have to pick up the fifth-year option on him. But I mean, you now have an all-pro player with 2 more years at minimum salary there. Obviously when it minimum when it comes to draft picks and all like that. So there is nothing not to like, however you slice it up when it comes to Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, a great deal through and through.
Let's see what else we have here. I thought, Bill Phillips writes in, what will stop the Steelers from getting Bud and Hargrave balloon payments in the uncapped year? He says $2 million in 2020 and $25 million in 21, $18 million option in 2022 for Bud. Bill Phillips, I don't know if you missed in the last couple of shows here. We've been talking a lot about the 30% rule. That's what's going to prevent you from doing it. So. If you want to give, he says, give Bud, give one of these, whatever guy he has, or $2 million in 20, and then going up $25 million in 2021. Yeah, that's more than 30%. So yeah, that's the whole reason they had that rule in the CBA, is prevent crap from this happening and all. So even though you currently have an uncapped year in 2021, there are mechanisms in place, i.e. the 30% rule. Go back and just search Steelers Depot for 30% rule. I recently wrote about that and how that's going to play into restructures. Well, that plays into contracts as well, any contract as well too. Restructure, new contract, extension, what have you. Those rules of that 30% rule will prevent what you just laid out there from happening, Bill Phillips.
All right, there you go. Good stuff.
Let's see. I think maybe we got through most of them there, Alex. So with that, anything to add as we wrap this thing up?
No, just enjoy playoff weekend, divisional weekend, and we'll be back on Monday.
Absolutely, we will. Okay, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Hey, holler at Charlie Batch on Twitter. Let him know you heard him on the podcast today. We appreciate him being on the show at Charlie Batch 16. If you want to reach out to him there, you should already be following him. If you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit ad-free button. And for $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site for 1 calendar year. And so with that, enjoy your weekend, everybody. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.